Hey, everybody. We're back with another episode of the Decentralized Me podcast. I'm your host, Matt. Crypthor was a recent participant in the Decentralized Identity Foundation hackathon and was an honorable mention winner. So just to kick things off, what inspired your concept? Go
So
from there.
TitanCare is basically an agent-based application, and it was developed with no coding involved. And I thought for the hackathon, I could have went the route with the codes and everything. But since, ArcBlock has agent, I thought it would be good to showcase an app which actually uses the application. And in terms of what it does, TitanCare is basically an application which is digital healthcare. And by that, I mean, instead of, consulting with your GP, you can ask the AI agent for help in terms of your diagnosis, your symptoms, treatment, mental health, fitness programs, diet, all sorts of things. Of course, disclaimer, you should always consult a doctor before going to an AI.
How does this experience differ from other healthcare apps or other apps that you've worked on?
I think
Different.
it's different because it uses more than one AI agent. It has about 7. So that's the beauty of agents, the ArcBlock application. It can actually combine agents together and they work concurrently, whereas current technology elsewhere, I don't think many places do that. So I was able to have this versatility of adding, as I said, diagnosis, then treatment, then fitness programs, everything in one. And yeah, it's great because everything's also stored in DID spaces. So you have all your information there accessible. You own the data as well. So it's great.
What are the blocklets you use to actually work on your project?
Oh yeah, for TitanCare, that's the beauty of ArcBlock, the composability of everything. The blocklets can work together. For TitanCare, I used the NFT Blender to create the verifiable credential. Then I linked it to Agent. Uh, Agent, I guess, the blocklet itself to create the prompts, the prompt engineering for each individual agent. I've also used a bit of code, but not for this, just to show an example of how you can link the verifiable credential to TitanCare. So I created an application called Titan Cards, I think it was, a memory game. And for that, I just used HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, then transformed that into a blocklet using Blocklet Studio. And yeah, I think in terms of blocklets, can't really think of more that I've used. It was quite limited because I didn't need to, not because ArcBlock doesn't provide the option, because there's loads of blocklets you can use. Maybe Pages Kit as well. I might have used that to link the verifiable credential to the Titan Cars application, but that's about it.
What are some of the challenges you were running into? Can you talk a little bit about that and how you overcame those challenges?
Fun fact for those who don't know, I think the first user blocklet on Blocklet Store was Snake. I made that in May this year. And I did have some challenges initially because Blocklet Store was still in its infancy stage for users. It had some bugs and whatnot. So I was working with a team, especially Shijun, I think his name is, and I was asking him, how can I overcome this bug? And then he'd come back the next day and we got there eventually and I published it. But in terms of problems now, it's seamless. It's very seamless. There's no issues with Blocklet Studio or the Blocklet Store, but in the infancy stage, there were some problems and I can't think of specifics. For example, an error popped up when you try to do something and then we talked to the team to fix it immediately. It's great.
Yeah. You mentioned agents. You used agent, kind of no code, built some agents. You set up to 7. Can you kind of describe like what those agents were actually doing to make this whole thing?
I thought it adds depth to the application and a layer of complexity, but also utility, because if you just had an AI agent that gave you a diagnosis for your symptoms, it has some utility, but wouldn't you like to have something that gives you treatment as well for that? Wouldn't you like to have something that gives you guidance on your dietary requirements? Also VC that can help you get that certificate and link TitanCare to another application. So I thought of ways to create this complex application that has not been done before. So that's the great thing about ArcBlock. You can create innovation quite easily if you have the ideas. So it's not hard to implement them due to the coding barrier being removed, for example, with agent, but you need the idea. And
Knowing, hey, I'm using AI, I'm using no code tools, Agents Kit, I'm using, did spaces to store credentials. Let's take it on a different side now, right? In terms of building out a user experience, how do you make something that for most people actually is a sensitive topic? It's a personal experience. As you were thinking about your project, how did you design TitanCare to be user
yeah,
friendly?
I mean, the good thing is that agent itself, the default layout is quite good, but what I've done was I took it a step further and I designed sort of like skins, as I would call them, basically like all those images you add, the backgrounds, everything. the profile picture for the agent, just to make it aesthetically pleasing for the user, to make it more enjoyable when utilized. Because I think the default for agent application is just blank screens for everything, and that's fine, still works, but would people want to use something like that? So I thought of adding the background for TitanCare, and then the pictures for the profiles for the agents, and the verifiable credential itself was also designed in NFT Blender. So yeah, in terms of accessibility, I thought focusing on UI UX, the user interface, makes a huge difference in terms of people wanting to actually get your app or download it, launch it.
As I'm hearing you describe that, right? It's the user experience being everything, but kind of going back is like, how do you create an application technically to make it all work on the web or things you're trying to do with verified credentials?
The UI UX, because you can easily get lost in the code and the technicality, the complexity of an application, and you forget who it's aimed at. You need to think of the audience always and what value you can provide to them, even in terms of aesthetics.
How did you handle the short timeline?
It didn't take long at all. It took 2 days, maybe a day, and then the video and editing and everything, the description another day. So for me, it was something that did take long. The idea just came and then I just went to work. And it was done so fast is because at the same time, concurrently, ArcBlock was hosting a Blocklet competition. So I was focusing on that as well.
It's the new AI
Yeah.
paradigm, being able to build things in days versus weeks or months with TitanCare. What do you see as your next steps or your long-term strategy in terms of what you're trying to create? Do
Oh
you
yeah,
see a next
absolutely.
step?
There is an objective too. There is like a milestone, a roadmap, as you'd call it. For those who are probably not aware in the podcast and listening in, I do have my own domain, braintitan.did.live. And the goal is to keep expanding that. TitanCare is part of Brain Titan, the whole ecosystem built on ArcBlock. I have quite a few AI applications under Brain AI. That's the umbrella term I call it. But then I thought I would expand into Titan AI, and TitanCare is going to be part of that. I'm still to think of what other applications will go in Titan AI. But so far, TitanCare is definitely going to be there as a healthcare AI assistant. At the moment, I've also been building other application blocklets. I suppose the latest one I've done today is called Titan Blocks, and that's going to go in the Titan AI umbrella as well. What Titan Blocks does is uses custom components for PagesKit together to provide you with your fully customizable blockchain identity passports. And by that, I mean there's 4 identity passports that I created recently. One is called PassBlock, which is basically like a card. And on this card, you have buttons which take you to your ArcBlock profile, your Blocklet store profile, which has all your Blocklets, your personal website, and then also your DID block explorer, which shows your on-chain activity on the ArcBlock ecosystem. And all those buttons are customizable for the user. So each user can go and add their own links to those things. And then there's also a CV block, which is quite similar, but it's not so much related to ArcBlock, but rather your professional life. So you have a card, you add your profile picture and then your description, and then you have 4 buttons again, but the first one is your CV. You can add your link to your CV. It's like a LinkedIn that I think, and then you can send the email to yourself by pressing the next button. And then the last one is meetings. So you can set up a meeting with yourself, not you, but the user who's pressing the button, you can set up a third meeting, whatever. And then Market Block, which is like your personal NFT store. And then you can have the ArcBlock NFT store. There's a button for a workshop. Shout out to Wazel. And I think it's a few other guys in there as well. 12-inch, Decentral Bros, Joe. So who came up with this idea to create ArcBlock workshops for people to learn. So we're all going to collab on that. There's another button I can't really think of the top of my head right now, but you get the gist of the Market Block. It's sort of like a market where people can pay for services. And then the last one is Pay Block, which I'm quite excited about this one because it's a card. And you have your wallets attached to each button, your Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and ArcBlock on the main chain. And when the user presses the button, it copies the address and then obviously go to your exchange or to your wallet and paste it to the recipient, and you can send crypto to those addresses. So yeah, Titan Block links them all together. I added the menu as well, which can link from and other small components, but yeah, that's the gist of it. And that's going to go in a Titan AI with TitanCare. And I'll make more apps as well to go there, but so far,
So as a creator, as a builder, right, you went through the hackathon, got the honorable mention, you're working on these other things. One thing I love to ask people, right, is just like, what are you going to do to grow the project? Maybe you could share one or two things that you're thinking about
Yeah.
for
Oh,
adoption.
absolutely. There's two things here, what you mentioned. So I suppose in terms of also like versions of the project, like, updating, and also in terms of marketing, as you said, getting people to use your product. In terms of versions of the project, I haven't really put that much thought into it because at the moment it's quite complete for its time. Since, as I said, I think it's innovation that doesn't exist anywhere else for what I know. But one thing that pops to my mind right now, what I could do, maybe integrate some actual parts to the application that are codable. And in terms of marketing, that is quite tricky because, of course, it's a Web3 application. It's on the ID wallet, and people will show resistance to utilizing that just because it's early. The whole DID technology, and so like sometimes people when they think of crypto, they don't think of good things. So that's a challenge for mass adoption. Of course, you have X. I always post my videos with my application on X, and the ArcBlock community is super supportive. But you also want, like you said, to expand to a greater audience, like the general public. And I think that's a challenge, not just for me, but for even the big companies in crypto. So that's something I definitely have to think about.
So as you're describing that, one of the questions I think about is like, well, hey, like, you made some decisions, you built
Yeah.
your application, leveraged these different blocklets. If you could go back and start over, knowing what you know today, and let's go back in time
Yeah.
45 days, what would you do different?
Yeah, this is a good one. What I would do different is I would probably also do my Titan block project, which I started after the hackathon. But you can't control when the idea comes. The idea came after, and I've just done it now. I think that's my answer there
Yeah.
because I was quite pleased with how this one came out and published it today to the tester.
Yeah, that's great. What's been the most surprising thing as you are working through these projects, working on ArcBlock?
I was honestly really surprised from the start on how easy everything is to use. They don't know the information about me, but I am an engineer by profession, but nothing to do with software. So to me, I always thought I would have this barrier of the code for me to develop applications. But ever since I discovered ArcBlock, the coding barrier was totally removed to start with. But I was like, "Oh, that's great. Is it even real?" And then I went on and created my applications and everything. And I was like, yes, it's possible. What's great about it, the ecosystem is designed in such a way that it wants you to level up. So even though you can create applications without code, it kind of wants to teach you how to code as well. So I learned how to do HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and recently React. So yeah, the more you use the ecosystem, the more you learn because, as I said, initially starting with basic static pages and dynamic pages, now after you compose blocklets as well, like pages kit and whatnot, you have to learn a new version of like a JavaScript library, React, which is called React. And then you learn how to convert your classic vanilla JavaScript applications into that. And so you keep learning. It's a process, like a learning curve. And it's enjoyable. That's the great thing about it. It's not like most people when they try to learn how to code, find it quite hard, difficult, unpleasant. With ArtBlock, it's actually an enjoyable process and feels like building Lego pieces together.
Somebody news coming into ArcBlock, where would you suggest that they start?
In my opinion, agent. It's very underutilized, even at the moment. I think even in the community, people who know how to use the ecosystem, I haven't seen many people use agent much. And it's a shame because it has so much potential, not to just develop an application easily with no code, also provide some idea. You can brainstorm. I actually made an AI agent that can brainstorm, which I posted on Blocklets stores. So if you launch that, you can actually feed your idea to it, can improve it, and then it just gets the gears moving and then you can create a better idea. So yeah, I say start there, get your ideas together, write them down, maybe download an AI agent that already exists on because like brainstorm, um, improve that idea, and then try to create your own AI agent. There's video tutorials on ArtBlock's YouTube channel. Robert did quite a few. And once you get comfortable with that, maybe you can try to learn a bit of actual coding, CSS, JavaScript, HTML, nothing crazy. Learn how to use Blocklet Studio. That's important, in my opinion, because it's basically like a graphical user interface. You don't even need to learn how to use a server or anything like that. Just get ArtBlock Launcher, get Pages Kit, get your Blocklet Studio up, and then fill it in with your stuff, create blocklets. And yeah, from there, I think once you get to that stage, you have the basics down, you'll know what to do because I'm still learning myself each day, new stuff. Like, as I said, recently I've delved a bit into React custom components and it's great. Even people who are not experts in coding or developing, they can create applications which are really impressive.
Well, thanks, Crypthor. Thanks so much for your time. Congratulations on the honorable mention at the recent hackathon. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I thanks for your time. It was great talking to you.